Afternoon. I am A.G. Rudd, Professor of Cultural Studies and Social Thought and Education in the Department of Teaching and Learning in the College of Education and Chair of the Faculty Senate. The Faculty Senate is the intermediary between faculty and administration, providing a voice in the shared governance of the university, and approving curriculum is a central duty. This year, we have been heavily involved in collaborative efforts to make the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine ready for its first class this coming fall. We also were involved in working with the president, provost, and international programs to launch an ambitious internationalization effort for our student body. The Senate Executive Committee meets with the president and provost monthly. It is a pleasure at every turn to work with our new president, and I particularly value his openness and his positive and direct manner in dealing with issues. I would like to welcome all those in attendance and viewing online across the state and give some general remarks about the State of the University address. The address is a long-time WSU tradition. It provides an opportunity to reflect on past successes, focus on current priorities, and chart a course toward future opportunities. Today, we will celebrate our successes and publicly launch the Drive to 25, our institutional goal to become one of the nation's top 25 public research universities by 2030. Our speaker today, Kirk Schulz, became the 11th president of Washington State University on June 13, 2016, after a 7-year tenure as president of Kansas State University, where he guided K-State to a number of significant achievements in research, enrollment, and fundraising. During his first 7 months at WSU, President Schulz has emphasized listening to the Cougar Nation. He meets regularly with faculty, staff, students, alumni, and other members of the Cougar family as he leads efforts to build upon the university's recent successes. President Schulz has identified the Drive to 25 as WSU's #1 institutional goal. The drive will emphasize 2 priorities. 1, development of a preeminent research portfolio that improves lives and advances the common good. 2, creation of a truly transformative educational experience for students to ensure their success in the classroom and after graduating from WSU. President Schulz is one of the most active college presidents nationally to use Twitter to connect with the WSU family and to share his pride in the university. I stay in touch with him on Twitter and appreciate his photos and enthusiasm for WSU. He invites you to follow him at WSU_COUGAR_PRES at WSU Cougar Prez. Cougar colleagues, please join me in welcoming President Kirk Schulz.
Well, good afternoon, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's great to see so many people come out. My mother-in-law would be enthused to know this many people would show up to hear me say anything. So thank you for your time this afternoon. State of University Address is really a great time for us to reflect on a lot of the accomplishments we've had as a WSU family over the last year or so. And one of the things I think AG mentioned that Noel and I have now been here 7 or 8 months, but it feels a little bit longer in a positive way because these days, once you're named president somewhere, you immediately get that opportunity to be involved and engaged at your new campus. So even though I was named in March, it feels like I've been to a lot of stuff over the last year, and it's great to get to know the Cougar Nation, the many accomplishments of our faculty, staff, students, and alumni, and really a sense of we're ready to go and climb that next mountain. A couple things, though, moving, Noel and I have moved around the country a little bit, from the Midwest to the Pacific Northwest, and there's a few impressions, certainly, that I'd like to share about the state of Washington in this particular area. So those of you who've lived in Washington for most of your life or your career know that it's an awesome state, and it's really got a lot of great things going for it. It's one of the most diverse states that we've had a chance to live in if you look at our politics between the East and the West. We have a growing economy in the state of Washington. If you look around the country, there are a lot of states that don't see a growing economy and a growing population base. That brings some challenges and some opportunities, but I'd much rather be in a state that's got a lot of things happening than in a state that is not got that kind of vibrant growth that we see. We have 2 Fortune 5 companies that are headquartered in the state of Washington, and they're growing by leaps and bounds, and that's an opportunity for us to go along with that. The other thing that I think both Noel and I have noticed as we looked out and been visiting with alumni and corporations and partners throughout the state is a lot of places consider research done by faculty, staff, and students as sort of this add-on. Well, if the faculty have a little extra time, yeah, it's fine for them to kind of do that. Just don't let it interfere with anything else. What I've found in the state of Washington is whether it's the tree fruit industry, whether it's the software industry, the hospitality industry, people talk about they need the state universities to be doing cutting-edge research to help them be competitive in a global marketplace. And having that kind of support out there that says this is an important part of the university mission may be something in Washington we're used to, but is not that way around the rest of the country, and it's actually something that I think is a real advantage for us moving ahead. The last thing I want to say before I get into the talk is these State of the University addresses, if you look out there, the Chronicle of Higher Education, I'm sure everybody here reads that every day, but the different presidents have different philosophies about this particular address. Some people think it's a great opportunity to talk about trends in public higher education or where they see higher education moving in the future. I prefer to use it more as a celebration of accomplishments than I do talking about some future trends that I'm sure if I predict them will be wrong anyway. So today, that's what we want to spend our time doing. So the first part of this is really looking at our accomplishments. One of the challenges, and we'll get the sign language down and the slides will just magically show up, a couple things. Anytime we do university level accomplishments, there's so much going on with 30,000 students and several thousand faculty and staff that we always run a little bit of a risk of somebody out there will go, well, what about something I was involved in, wasn't in here? What we have to do is we just took a cross-section of different areas of success. Faculty, staff, and student, and campuses, and undergraduates and graduates, and different things like that. So remember, this is simply supposed to be a sampling of those different things. The other thing and I got to give our university communications folks a shout out on this, as you watch these, they have little videos that'll be playing in the background that illustrate some of the things on some of the different points. So when you see that change, if it turns on something funny, just hold back your laughter until I'm done talking. But enjoy the fact that there's a lot of those types of things that will be going on. So kind of visually exciting to see that and watch that as well. So let's start off with our first one, expansion of healthcare statewide. And I think AG mentioned that one of the exciting things for Washington State University is starting a brand new publicly funded medical school, the second medical school in the state of Washington. Now, one of the things is, when I got here, is this has certainly been something that the campus has spent a lot of time on, and it's been a great collaborative effort between the administration, between our faculty colleagues, staff, and students, and everybody's kind of come together. One of the things that when the LCME came to do our initial accreditation visit is they really pointed out, you guys did this a year faster than just about anybody else in the country. And I think as we remember that, this says something about us as an institution that we were able to start something like this, get the dollars, get the accreditation, and move this forward and welcome that first class of 60 Coug docs coming in this summer in August in Spokane. So when we talk about statewide, though, as a reminder, our students will spend the first 2 years largely in the Spokane campus, and then years 3 and 4 at our other physical campus facilities around the state. So we'll have medical students full-time in Everett, in Vancouver, in Tri-Cities, and in Spokane. And I think that was part of our model. The other thing is all 60 of those students coming in will have some form of Washington roots. Whether they went to high school or college here, they served in the military, they have some roots back here. We don't even have an out-of-state tuition for the medical school. So we're very focused around providing physicians to serve in underserved areas of the state of Washington, and that means we got to get those students from all over the state and have opportunities for those students to be educated in practice in those rural underserved communities. Next slide. Environmentally friendly jet fuel. One of the other kind of cool things that a top 25 research university is involved in is collaborative research projects that span multiple universities, lots of partnerships together. So this is a $40 million research grant from the USDA that is co-led by Washington State University and MIT. We have a heritage in the state of Washington of really being focused around natural resources and a value to those natural resources. This doesn't make any difference whether we're talking about politics on the left or the right. It's interesting how many people are worried and concerned about this. And if you look at our legacy as a state, certainly in the forest products and timber industry, this is a great opportunity for us to take something that's a legacy project, apply new technology, and we had that flight that left in November, December timeframe, flew to Washington, D.C., and on Alaska Airlines that was all off this biofuel. These are the kinds of projects that we're going to continue to see that are part of WSU and part of a top 25 public research university. Well, one of the challenges that we had as I've been out talking about this, and as Dan and others have talked about the top 25 public research university, is I'll get a lot of comments, particularly after I speak with a cocktail in hand, right, that somebody says, Kirk, it's great to see the research part, but remember what WSU is there for, or I got my undergraduate degree there, and that's an important part. As a reminder, the Drive to 25 is not solely a research and scholarship goal. We want to have a great transformational student experience. That's already moving in that direction, and many of you participate in making sure that our students have a great time, whether they're here at any of our campuses. This has been recognized by a couple magazines out there. Money Magazine ranked us in the top 30-some in the country around value. And if we look at that transformational student experience, we've been ranked #1 among public universities nationally. So we got some great stuff going there, and I think that's an important thing as we look to the future. Well, advancement of global health security. One of the other things that I like about WSU is we've got big ideas and we've got these folks there that are making a huge positive difference around the world. You need some audacious goals. So we look at the Pacific Northwest, we look nationally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The idea that we can eradicate rabies by the year 2030, and that's being led by our colleagues at the Paul Allen School of Global Animal Health. What a cool thing for us to think about doing. Everybody who does research and scholarship and things, you want it to have an impact. And something like this around our public health space will have a lasting impact, not just today, but well into the future. This also shows what happens when we take great ideas that come out of our faculty, our staff, and our students. And to me, the central job of the administration is how do we go get those resources to help people do those great ideas. Largely, a lot of these things don't come from the senior administrators. They come from you all saying, here's an opportunity for us. This is what we need to be successful. And I think this internationalization piece of WSU on the research side is something that all of us should be proud of. Well, one of the cool things about being a land-grant university president is that land-grant universities have great colleges of agriculture. And I was in Central Washington this summer, and after visiting with a Tree Fruit Growers Association, we had one of our extension specialists come up, and he said, well, Kirk, I know you're going back to Pullman. Here's some apples to take with you. And yeah, I've been president like a week, and I thought, okay, apples, I mean, how good can this be, right? And got them back home, and we consumed those bad boys in about a week. They were really good. And they're a cosmic crisp apple. And you say, well, Kirk, that's fine. What difference does that make? Just a couple things. We already believe within a year or two that we'll have 3 million trees planted to do cosmic crisp apples. The year after that, another 500,000 or 600,000 planted. Cosmic Crisp apples should be available to the consumer by the year 2020, but it shows what can happen when you have a long-term research program that is working with local industry to make things happen. And this is a fruition, no pun intended there, of lots and lots of, you can laugh at that if you want, lots and lots of years of research and working together to support an industry that's very important to our state. And I think if you look over the history of land-grant institutions, that's part of our DNA, and that's part of what we need to continue to be doing. Well, record enrollment, and you all probably just saw recently that we had a press release out that we had a record enrollment for this spring semester. We also had a record enrollment in the fall, 30,142 students. I've used that number a lot speaking over the last 3 months, so that's how I can remember that. But we saw record enrollment across a bunch of our campuses. What that tells me is that families out there see the value of a Washington State University experience. That enrollment and the fact that we continue to see that grow tells us that in the marketplace, people value and say, hey, if I can go there, that's really good. A couple things, though. It's not just the total enrollment, but what does our class look like when it's coming in? And are we keeping some of our core principles as part of WSU as we shape those classes? The first is about a third of our incoming freshmen are underrepresented minority students, and we have maintained that over the last several years. There's also a strong commitment here to first-generation students, and we've also maintained around 40% of an incoming class as first-generation students. Now that in itself is extremely impressive, but if we look and say over the last 4 years, we've increased our applications by 50%, and the high school GPA continues to go up, so we have a more academically gifted incoming class that maintains our commitment to diversity and first generation. So just a shout out to Dan Bernardo and our admissions staff for the great job that they continue to do. This is a very competitive marketplace. We tend to think if you just fill out an application, how hard is it to get the students that we would like? But the fact that we have this shaped class coming in that's going to be academically successful, diverse, and continues to help us build across all of our campuses, I think is something that we all should be proud of. Now, when we bring in those diverse classes of students, that also carries with it some challenges and opportunities. It's more reflective of the state of Washington, but if you look at the political environment that we're in right now, one of the challenges that we continue to have is, for example, this week we've had some issues around support for undocumented students. I want to reiterate our support for undocumented students at Washington State University. We also had a lot of our colleagues and friends in the international community that were separated from families and others because of the travel ban. The university fought really hard to make sure that that was lifted and that we can have an internationally diverse community here. So all I want to remind everybody is there's going to be lots of things happening over the next several months out of the federal government, and we remain committed to a family-friendly environment that's diverse and supported of students, faculty, and staff, and that is going to be unwavering as we move ahead. So, thank you. So one of the other things that I've talked about since I've been here is that we no longer refer to our other campuses as branch campuses. And you can say, well, Kirk, what difference does language make on that? They are what they are. That's how they started. Well, when we look at what's happening around the WSU system, we have some of our campuses that if they were in other states would be standalone institutions. They're of that size. So what I want us to do is it's not just a semantics that the French admin is telling everybody. It's really the philosophy of one system in these different campuses. If we look at the Vancouver campus, if you've never been there, this is one of the prettiest campuses I've ever been on. You can stand in the middle, look at Mount Hood on a clear day, when you get a clear day on that part of Washington. Mount Hood in one direction, Mount St. Helens in the other, and just this great, beautiful architectural similarity across that entire campus. We added a couple new degree programs in Vancouver this last year in electrical engineering and in the communications area. And we're going to continue to make sure that we build out the research university for Southwestern Washington. And sometimes we don't think about it in that particular way, but if you look at the Portland, Vancouver area, there's a lot of pride that we're an R1 university offering bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs right there in that particular corridor. We also saw an increase in enrollment this year, a 17% increase in the freshman class on our Vancouver campus, and I think we're going to continue to see that move towards 4,000 or 5,000 students in the foreseeable future. Well, our newest campus is North Puget Sound at Everett, and I'll just normally call it WSU Everett, but we have about 200 students here. A brand new building on this particular campus that is almost completed. And if you have not been to this particular campus, I urge when you're on that side of the state, go by and check it out. We've added a couple new degree programs here in data analytics and computer science. And the data analytics program is already seeing huge interest from that side of the state. The other thing that I think that we need to continue to remember on our newest campus is how can we bring degree programs and things to this area of the state that WSU is really good at, that are great in that particular marketplace, and that are needed. And as I go around to each of the campuses, one of the things that I see is I'm physically there, meeting with the communities, meeting with the faculty, staff, and students. Each one of these campuses has different types of aspirations that are important to the area in which they are in. So sometimes we can think in Pullman, we know what they need in Everett, or we know what they need in Vancouver. It's important for all of us to be out there listening to those communities about what they believe is important for their campus. Our Spokane campus, we mentioned the medical school already, is really an exciting part, but I really look back over the last 10 years and the strategic decision to make the Spokane campus centered around the health sciences, if you will, I think is really going to pay great dividends as we move to the future. So in addition to medicine, as a reminder, our College of Pharmacy just celebrates 125 years of producing pharmacists for the state of Washington. Our College of Nursing is, even though they're centered there, we have nursing programs all over the state of Washington. So I think you're going to continue to see us do great things there. And we talk about adding the MD degree. Just as a reminder, we have other fantastic programs there. And our challenge, our opportunity is how do we get all those working together to advance human health care. The other part is one of the things we just opened up was a teaching clinic on our campus in Spokane. And what's unique about the teaching clinic is I think it's going to be part of the future of how we're going to build things out. It was a partnership between the university, one of the local healthcare hospital systems, and a foundation. And that's going to be the way that we're going to need to build some of our building and our infrastructure out. Is you hear public-private partnerships is maybe almost overused, but it's the opportunity for 3 people or 4 groups to come together, each provide some funding to make a project happen sooner than we could otherwise, and then it benefits each of those individual partners in a really unique and special way. Next slide. Well, our Tri-Cities campus is our most ethnically diverse campus. We have nearly 40% of our students in the Tri-Cities are from underrepresented groups, and this continues to grow. We saw a 17% increase in the overall enrollment at Tri-Cities this last year. And one of the challenges that we have in the Tri-Cities area is we haven't done a lot of campus construction around student amenities there recently. That changed this year. We're actually finishing and finalizing completion of a student life center. That'll be open in the fall semester for our students in the Tri-Cities. And another public-private partnership, we're going to build some student housing there that's being financed by a private developer, working with the campus. And the weather kind of got in our way. It was originally supposed to be open a year from this fall, and it's now going to be 2 years away before that's ready to go. But I think on that particular campus, we have great academic programs. It's fleshing out some of the other aspects that we would expect that are all part of the college experience that people expect when they come to Pullman or Tri-Cities or anywhere else. Then finally, the global campus. And I've been involved in public higher education for most of my career, and I can remember where distance education has come from. You know, the old days where you box up a videotape and to tape somebody standing on a stage, and maybe there was some sort of almost correspondence test, or we loaded a faculty member on an airplane, they flew to somewhere remote, they taught for a 3 or 4 hour time period, got on that plane, turned around and came back. Those were where we were. Well, if you look and fast forward to today, we use modern technology, modern teaching pedagogy. We're able to provide opportunities for students that are place-bound or for whatever reason can't come to a physical campus to get a great WSU educational experience. This is being recognized. U.S. News & World Report ranked our undergraduate online programs 15th in the country, up from in the 30s the previous year. Now, U.S. News & World Report, remember, right, we don't like it unless we do well in it, and then we think it's great. But it's an external recognition of the great job Dave Soleil and his team does working with you all to make sure that our students see a very high-quality product out there that is really great for them. It's neat, too, at graduation, when you may meet people that are on Pullman for the first time getting a WSU degree that did all of it online. And I think that's part of our future, and we're going to continue to see that for a certain segment of our population that really needs this type of educational experience. Well, one of the other things, though, that I think, and you walk past the construction on our new art museum, one of the key things that I think makes a campus a special place is the arts. And it's not just the ability for us to go to the arts, but it's the integration of arts with the campus culture. So it's not that we have a great new art museum coming in place that's going to be bigger and glossy and all that. The question becomes, how can we creatively find a way to integrate the fact that we have this great art museum into more curricula and more educational experiences? These are the kind of fun things that we're all going to get to participate in and think about. The other thing is that land-grant universities, so often we think, well, we got to really be doing extremely well in our research in Connors and engineering and veterinary medicine and places like this. We also need to make sure that we have equally terrific opportunities and spaces for our faculty colleagues that are in the performing and the fine arts as well. This is an important part of WSU now and moving into the future, and I look forward to working with our colleagues in that area to continue to have that integrated onto campus and be part of our terrific transformational undergraduate student experience. Well, one of the other things that we work on is core facilities to enable faculty, staff, and students to do cool new things. And one of the things that represents about a $3 million investment by Washington State University is our high-performance computing facility. And you have to name these things, right? You couldn't just say it's a high-performance computing facility. It's called CAMIAC. The good news is we put that together, and if we look at the usage, more and more of you are utilizing CAMIAC for your research projects. But if we kind of follow that curve out, what's going to happen is about a year from now, we will basically exceed the capacity that we have. The good news is that means more people are using it, and it's an important part of an increasingly large research portfolio. The challenge is we've got to figure out ways to improve or enhance our facilities to house that, as well as staff support and other things to make sure that you have the facilities, the people, and the equipment that you need to continue to do really creative research projects in high-performance computing. Well, one of the other cool things that I got to do this year was, when I was in Everett, is to meet our Mars Rover team. Just to give some perspective on this, this is a group of, you have these competitions, and there'll be a set of guidelines and a certain date that you have to basically build this stuff, and you go compete against other universities and other teams. You want to talk about real-world experiences. You get a group of students together, maybe with a faculty advisor. Nobody cares if you majored in X, Y, or Z. The idea is you got to get something done and you got to accomplish things. It's a great opportunity for our students to learn to work together as a team. You try stuff that works. You try things that doesn't work. Sometimes you're dysfunctional. Sometimes it's the greatest experience you've ever had. But you add all that together, and this is a key part of our educational environment environment that we talk about here, and an amazingly wide range of disciplines have opportunities, not always to build a robot, but to do different kinds of things like this, and I think it's an important part of WSU. So this group of students entered this competition, and I had a chance to meet them this summer, and they described the Rover and actually had it go around a little event we had in Everett. And this set of students at our newest campus finished second in this international competition. What's even more striking is the last place team was from another research university in the state of Washington. So always an important point of pride. So the Mars Rover Apple Cup. Okay, next slide. One of the other things, when I was in school in the 1980s, and we talked about service and public service and things like that, we have certain groups of students that might do a little something. I think if we look today, what we find is many of our students are extremely active in the communities and recognize that a university is not just located somewhere, but it's an integral part of a community. We had over 10,000 students perform over 100,000 hours of community service across all of our campuses last year. This service learning component of that undergraduate educational experience, I think, is an important thing, and we want to make sure that we facilitate this in a great way. Now, there's lots of these different things we could talk about. The Tri-Cities campus, we had a group of students that worked with Habitat for Humanity and built a house in Pasco for an immigrant family. Those are impactful things that I can guarantee you our students will remember 20 and 30 years after graduation, the impact they had on a group of individuals around where their campus is, and we want to continue to figure out good creative ways for this to be part of WSU. Well, one of the other things that I think is important for us to also recognize, and this is extremely cliche-ish, but we talk about athletics being the front porch of the university. But I can tell you when I travel across the U.S. and I've got my WSU gear on, I'm like a human NASCAR, right? Everywhere I go, I've got that stuff on. It's amazing the number of people and the number of Go Cougs that we'll get, in the Atlanta airport, in Florida, in these different places like that. Athletics is a great opportunity to brand the institution and for people to know something about Washington State University. This last year, we had the opportunity for our football team to play in a bowl game and to be on national TV. And the spot that we'll show at the very end of the talk, our 30-second spot, we debuted on that particular time in front of a national audience to talk about WSU. So I'm proud of our athletic teams. I'm proud of the way they represent the university. And I want to remind everybody that so often we get enamored by one or two student athletes that have that opportunity to play professional sports. We got to remember that about 98% of our student athletes are here to perform at an elite level and get a degree. And they want to go out in the marketplace and do great things after their experience at WSU. So just a shout out to our student athletes who are trying to do two things: be a full-time student, be a full-time athlete, and by the way, they would like to do some other things on campus as well. So kudos to our football team. One of the other things, if we look at top 25 public research universities and their characteristics, is that many of those schools would have somewhere around a 15 to 18% of their undergraduate student body would be from abroad, from outside the United States. We're about 7% at WSU. And you say, Kirk, what difference does that really make? Well, we want our graduates to be ready to work and operate in a global marketplace. And this is independent of what people major in. And to do that, it would be great if we had the financial resources to allow every student to go out and do some sort of study abroad. Yeah, they're shaking their head yes, they would like to do that. But we don't have that. So one of the things that we want to do is certainly enhance study abroad, but what can we do to bring more students from outside the United States in to work on those design teams and be in classes and group projects and things with our other students? What a great way to sit down and talk to somebody from a different place around the world and learn about how they were brought up and what their aspirations are. So in order to do that, we've contracted with Into. And I want to give a shout out to Asif Chaudhry and our team in international programs for all the work they did on this, along with our faculty senate and Dan Bernardo as our provost that spent a lot of time working together on what this might look like. We are going to be able to choose which area of the world we'd like to recruit students from, what their academic background needs to be. We have a lot of control over this, and Into is partnered with other major land-grant universities like Colorado State, Oregon State, and another major public university, University of South Florida. So this is somebody that understands our style of institution and has been a very successful partner at those other places. This is going to be, I believe, transformational for us over the next several years, not just as a university, but as a community, as we see more people from around the world as colleagues at restaurants, eating out, shopping, in our classes, as part of campus life. A great faculty is also part of a great university. And we could have lots and lots of slides on faculty achievement, but I want to recognize 4 colleagues that were elected to the Washington Academy of Sciences. This is a lot of the members of the Washington Academy of Sciences eventually become members of the National Academy of Sciences. So this is recognizing some penultimate achievement by these 4 individuals that we have. One of the things that you're going to find that Dan as provost, myself, Chris Keene, and others are really going to focus on is what can we do to make sure that we're recognizing faculty achievement and that we're nominating colleagues for awards and recognition that they so often deserve. So many people at land grants like us roll up their sleeves, working hard, not worried about that recognition. It's our job to make sure and say, hey, Kirk, have you been nominated for this? If you haven't, let me help you do that. And I want to make sure that we up that. And so when we show these kind of slides in future years, maybe we have 6 or 8 members that have been added that recognize the excellence of people that we have here. And then one of my favorites, the wine science program, not the research part, the consumer part. But as I was getting ready to do my interviews, one of the things that I found was this cool project, the St. Michele Estates Wine Science Center. If we go back to supporting and working within the Washington industry area in responding to opportunities as an institution, I think this is a great success story of a partnership. The state-of-the-art Wine Science Center, and if you're ever in the Tri-Cities, I urge you to go by, tour through it, and check it out, was built all with private money. So this is a great idea. This is industry support coming together and making this happen. We have a state-of-the-art center that UC Davis, which is kind of the gold standard, if you will, in wine science, said, hey, if we were doing another one, here's some things we would do differently. So we've got the best facility in the United States, if not one of the best in the world. The Washington wine industry is second behind the state of California and is making some of the very best wines that we can think of. So it's not just, though, growing the grapes in the ag side. It's hospitality management. It's other programs and how all that blends together. But this is an industry, I think, we look out in 10 years is going to continue to be incredibly important for not just our state, but the central Washington part of where we are located. So those are just a few of the accomplishments this last year that span a broad range of things. You know, we have lots of stuff that we dropped out, but I just want to say how proud I am of you all as a faculty, as a staff, as students, about the great things that you continue to do. And one of the opportunities we've talked about with Vice President for Marketing and Communications candidates is, hey, their job is come in here, work with our university communications folks, and take the great things that you all are doing and find a way to wave that flag more effectively, broadly, around the Pacific Northwest, the nation, and the world. And I can tell you, as you look at all this stuff, we've got a lot more stories to tell that are equally as intriguing as these, that I just think people around the country are going to be thrilled to hear their institution is having such a significant impact. So one of the other parts, things a president gets to do, right, is also visit the state capitol and visit with elected officials to talk about investments in Washington State University. I will say that as I go look around the country, the state of Washington is one of a few that still aggressively, positively supports higher education. Now, I know there was a tough time in the recession when a lot of cutbacks occurred, but if you really look, there's a lot of states out there where I'll talk about to presidential colleagues, oh, I'm going to the legislature to talk about building new buildings. They'll say, well, we haven't gotten a new building in 8 or 10 years. I'm going to talk about a salary plan for our faculty, staff, and graduate students, and they'll say, oh, our state doesn't fund that. These are things that the state of Washington continues to do, and our job is to go and tell them and advocate for why these things are important when they've got all kinds of priorities. So the first thing, funding for medical education. We're asking for $60,000 per year for each of 60 new medical students this year. The interesting thing, though, is that's this year. Then you go next year, guess what? We've got another 60 students coming in. We need another $10.8 million. So if you extrapolate it out to 4 years, this is a huge additional financial ask of the legislature to help support medical education. The interesting thing I found, and this is really positive, is no matter whether it's East or West, Democrat or Republican, there's a tremendous amount of support for the Elson Floyd College of Medicine, and people want to see this happen. And I think until the legislature's done, until the budget's signed, you never know what's going to happen. But I feel very optimistic that we're going to move forward on this in a very positive way. We also have several capital funding projects, and I mentioned the generosity of the state of Washington. As you remember, just very quickly, there's different phases you go through for the building. First, you get kind of permission to do it and do some planning money. So it's a 6-year deal. So the 2 buildings that we have right now that we're asking for construction funds for, the first is a plant sciences building. It'll go in that plant sciences complex that's already out there. We're asking for about $60 million for that. And then phase 2, the global animal health or the diagnostic laboratory that we need to support the animal health industry that we need for veterinary medicine and Connors is also part of that ask. You add these 2 together, we're asking for quite a bit of money. This is a huge lift, but interestingly, and this really goes out to Ron Middlehammer and a lot of our folks, is I've been amazed the ag industry in the state of Washington is all together on both these projects. They expect us to show up and say we need these, but it's great when we've got a variety of producers and industries that sit down and say, hey, let me tell you what you need to do at Washington State University, and this is important to our success. So that's been very positive as well. There are going to be some challenges with capital projects. I think our philosophy is we're going to describe what we need. It's up to the legislature to figure out how to fund it. And I'm not making a joke there as much as we can get in the middle of how you're going to get the money. We need to do a great job of advocating for why that's important so that they will figure out good creative ways to make this happen. The other thing, too, is I talked about a great faculty and staff. We also need to make sure that we're providing appropriate compensation. So we've asked for a 4% merit pool for each year of a 2-year biennium for our faculty, staff, and graduate students. I've had several conversations about this, and again, we're just going to have to wait and see. But several legislators have asked about it, and us and the University of Washington are right in the same place on this, and we're trying to be together in our legislative advocacy for salaries. So let's wrap up here on the drive to 25, and then I'll take some questions. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Just a couple things. As we look back at our mission and vision statements for the institution, one of the nation's leading land-grant universities, preeminent in research and discovery, teaching, and engagement by the year 2030. Next slide. So our 2 areas, and AG mentioned this as we started off, accelerate development of a preeminent research portfolio, transformational student experience. These are both there. They came out of the university's strategic planning exercise. These have not changed. They're simply focused a little bit more on how we're going to measure those. Now, Dan and I went around and visited with each college and each campus, and we heard a variety of concerns. And it's interesting, you would expect after you do about 4 of those that you hear exact same things. It turns out it's amazing the diversity of concerns and things that you hear, but we largely group them into these types of things that we heard more and more often. I mentioned reminding everybody this is not just a research goal. We still want to have and want to maintain and grow into a more exceptional an undergraduate educational experience. Our reputation is important. I heard this again and again. We need a modern, flexible infrastructure. I keep waiting for that magical meeting where we sit down and somebody says, Kirk, I got this great space. It's wet lab laboratory space. I don't need it, and I'm going to give it back to you to give it to whoever you would like to. That conversation, you know, it's sort of president's dream about that, right? It's like, oh, we found an extra $10 million in the budget we didn't know what we had. One of the things is that as we build out our university campuses, we need to remember that we don't tear buildings down very often. They stay there for a long, long time, and they need to be flexible and modern, and the ability to move and change their function without spending millions and millions of dollars. Institutional size does make a difference. The top 25 goal is a system goal. It's not a Pullman goal. That's for WSU as a system. And multiple people pointed out, you got to focus. You need to pick some things you're going to do, and that means you got to pick some things probably you're not going to do. And even though that's a difficult conversation, we need to make sure that we're having that and engaging on that together as an institution. So we have 11 metrics, and I introduced these in my last letter to campus, grouped into 3 categories. If we're going to talk about being an AAU institution, we may as well be measuring what the AAU would do if they want to have you as a member. We also have some peer comparisons, and then 3 very specific ones to WSU. So the AAU ones, you've seen these before. These are things like, there we go. Federal research and development expenditures, faculty awards, and they have like 2,000 different awards that they sort of count. So they're across almost all academic disciplines. Number of members of the National Academy and citations. If we look at the next slide that's got the peer comparison, total research and development, doctorates awarded, annual giving, that's a philanthropy number, and then 6-year graduation rate. And you can say, well, Kirk, what about other things like freshman to sophomore retention or these other undergraduate measures? If you think about it, if we're going to get our graduation rate up, that affects almost everything else, and we've got to make those things better. Now, the final one I want to talk about is really some WSU specific metrics. The first is we pride ourselves on being a research institution. It's got to affect positively our undergraduate students, and we need to figure out what percentage of our undergraduate students are actually involved and engaged in research and scholarship. If you ask now, some departments could give a firm number, others could say, well, I've seen a few people around, but we don't have a way of assessing and measuring this. The second thing is placement rate of graduates within 6 months of graduation. Now, when we say placement rate, that could be in law school, medical school, graduate school. What it is here, and I really want to focus around this, is as our students come in, what is it they want to do and accomplish, and how are we helping them to get there? So the old days of Kirk's going to major in chemical engineering, I'm going to kind of row him out to the middle of the lake, push him in the water, and hope he swims ashore. Almost nobody operates that way. We don't operate that way as an institution. But let's get out there and take something that's a positive for WSU and wave that flag a little bit and talk about this in a positive way. The final thing is I mentioned the percentage of our undergraduate students that are from underrepresented minority groups. We've done a great job of diversifying our students. You never are finished, but we've really made great progress. We have not made similar types of progress with faculty and staff. And this is not an easy fix, otherwise, frankly, would have done it already. But what we want to do is have some campus-wide dialogue about ways that we can diversify our leadership, our senior leadership, our deans, our faculty, our staff, all the way up and down the organization, so our campus reflects more what the state of Washington looks like. Last thing, how can you help? Share suggestions, and faculty are never hesitant to share suggestions. Thank you. Several of you email me on a regular basis, and I do read them all, so thank you. Join our efforts to advance the Drive to 25. We're going to have lots of opportunities for people to continue to be there. And then if you feel good about where we're going and you're at a conference or there's something you're doing that you think contributes to this, let your colleagues out there know about our institutional aspirations. I think that is probably more powerful than any set of slick things that we put together. So, to finish off, this was a short video. It's 30 seconds long that we debuted at the bowl game. And after this, AG will come up and we'll answer some questions. So, go ahead.
university. And any big leader.
Wait, let me show you WSU. We're about being hands-on and getting our hands dirty. We bring art to science and science to one. We build Mars rovers and launch new medical schools, with the occasional pizza break. Now back to work, because we're always moving forward.
All right, thank you.
We have time for some questions before we have the reception. And there are roving microphones around. Here we are.
Hi, Trish Glazebrook, Politics, Philosophy, and Public Affairs. I'll just stand so you can see where I am.
That's all right, I got you. We're good.
Thanks very much. That was really interesting, and I enjoyed hearing it, and it just makes me even more pleased and proud that I'm part of Washington State University. I just wanted to raise the issue or ask the question of the other side of the land-grant institution, which is the commitment to the military. And it seems that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit with respect to that in the United States concerning both providing a transformative educational experience, but also in terms of military science and military studies as research possibilities, whether it's, you know, the security challenge of climate change now, or now that we have a new health facility, the particular health needs, whether mental or about body parts that have been sacrificed of our military who are returning to our to the country. And I think that we could draw more of them to this institution, and I think that if we focused on it, we could serve them in much more strong ways. So I just was wondering if that's on your radar, and if there's thoughts about how to develop that. Thank you.
Great question, and so I'll repeat it for our folks that are out there watching, is really what types of things are we doing with, I'll say, military veterans coming back, as well as policy issues related to military families and things like that. Is that a fair way to put it? A couple things. I mentioned, I think, earlier that the best ideas from a university always come from below and percolate up. And I think this is another one of those areas of opportunity for us that we need to consider what we can be doing. If I look at our research portfolio, we certainly have some opportunities in the defense industry as a whole. If we look at kind of where our research numbers are, I think most land-grant universities tend to be very veteran and military-friendly types of institutions, and I think that's an opportunity for us as well. Coming from an institution that had a large base located about 8 miles away, we did a lot of work together. And one of the key things, though, if we're going to make a commitment to have more military folks here, is you got to make sure we have the appropriate support structure in place to assist military men and women making a transition from the military onto a college campus. And doesn't mean that's hard to do or there's lots of issues, but you need some people familiar with both the military and the university to really design some programs and really support that. So I concur. There's more we can do with that. And I'd love to hear a little bit more later about some ideas you may have about what we could be doing. Thank you.
Other questions?
Am I next? Hi, President Schulz. I'm Kevin Schilling. I'm on the ASWSU Senate. I represent the College of Arts and Sciences. Thank you for your presentation today. I'm also a big fan of advocating for Cougar success everywhere and what you've got going on for the Drive to 25. I've got a question for you about outreach to students and student input for the Drive to 25. How are you deciding, how do you qualify what student input will be put into the Drive to 25 and what doesn't? How are you qualifying that input?
Yeah, so I think the first stages of a lot of the Drive to 25 were largely working with the senior executive team to talk about what that goal should be. Should it be Drive to 30, 35, 50, where should that be? Looked at a lot of data and things like that. Then, largely, when we went out in the fall, a lot of that was we had a lot of students at a few of the presentations that we made that asked great questions and were very engaged in that. The next step, though, is where we're going to have great opportunities for involvement from students, faculty, and staff. And that's where we're going to put work groups around each of those 11 metrics. So we're going to be going out and reaching out and saying, okay, if we're going to have a more diverse faculty and staff, what types of things do we need to be thinking about doing? What programs we need to put in place? What resources need to be there? So now is, in a way, the hard part. It's great to say, here's how we're going to measure it, here's the goal, that stuff. Now it's what's an execution plan look like, how do we bring resources to bear, and how's that going to impact our experience here. So you'll be reading more about that over the next couple months. And really, I hope to get those groups kind of going in the fall semester. So nobody's missed anything, but now we're ready to get down, roll our sleeves up, and figure out how to get it done.
Hi, President Schulz. Alex Crescenti from
Oh, there you go.
KLEW. Now that the new presidential administration is in and we have a new Secretary of Education, there's a lot of concerns, especially around public education. Do you have any concerns with the university and this new sort of administration?
Yeah, so largely the Secretary of Education at the federal level has not been terribly involved and engaged in higher ed. Now, to separate out and say, well, it doesn't make any difference to us what happens in K through 12, that's where all of our students come from, so clearly that's something important to us. And I know there's a lot of controversy over cabinet appointments and our president and things like that. At this point, frankly, I'm waiting to sort of see what policy things come out, and then we decide how to react to them. And I think we found that over time there'll be some mitigating influence there, but I think the state of Washington, we value public education, K through 12. We value our public universities, and I don't think, regardless of what happens in D.C., we're going to see a sudden change in our state and our population and what they think. And so even though I get concerned about that stuff, I still got to remember this is where I live. This is where we have most control over what we do, and I don't think any of those things are going to change significantly for the worse.
We have time for a few more questions.
Hi, I'm Keith Plattner, School of the Environment. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of an update on the airport expansion and facility movement and all of the other issues on that part of campus.
Certainly. So the airport expansion is continuing to move forward, and you've seen the construction equipment, and it's amazing the amount of dirt that's been moved out there. Clearly, I think we've seen, and I've seen now after my first winter here, the real value if you want to fly in out of here on a reliable basis, that something different's got to happen with the Pullman Airport. You know, I've driven to Spokane lots and lots of times, and not always voluntarily, right? That being said, we still are in debate, argument, call it what you will, back and forth over the fair value of all that stuff, how we're going to ensure that the active research facilities that our faculty are using, that we have appropriate facilities located elsewhere for them. So to say that all that's complete and done and there's a big bow on that, we're not quite there yet. Olivia Yang, our interim vice president for finance administration, is really taking the lead on that, and we're closer than we were 6 months ago. And the good news is, and I think I want everybody to make sure they take this away, everybody's talking, and they're talking to try and get to a solution. This summer, I'm not sure we were there. And if everybody says, hey, we got to figure out a way to make it work, I'm not saying it's easy, but at least then you've got everybody coming together, and we're really right there now. We've got good communications with Tony Bean at the airport. But last thing on this, when we lived in Manhattan, Kansas, prior to moving here, they opened up jet service for the first few months in Manhattan to Chicago and Dallas. It was the single most transformational thing to that area, was having reliable air transportation in and out, going two different directions, so that you went to the airport, you're pretty sure I was going to get on a plane, I was going to get eventually to my location. I think that hurts alumni wanting to retire here. It hurts growing businesses here. It hurts some of that stuff as people can't get reliably in and out. Plus, you got the passes, so you can't even drive here a lot of times because those are closed. So this is important to Pullman in this area, and we got to get it right. So.
Another question.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Hi. So I am actually reading off questions from the online live feed, and somebody who's watching, their name is Amir. They're wondering how the university will focus on campus libraries during the Drive to 25.
Right. Thank you. if there's other controversial questions, I can give those to everybody so I can make sure to get them all out. But the libraries is a frequent and appropriate question by many of our faculty, staff, and students that are concerned with continuing cutbacks in journals and resource materials. And largely the question is almost, how can you be a top 25 public research university if our faculty, staff, and graduate students don't have access to the research materials they need to do their job? Part of it is we got to continue to look at long-term, right? We've got to continue to look at ways to enhance the budget coming to the library for particular serials and things like that. We've had a budget meeting today, the provost, myself, and others, and we're looking at, as new monies come into the university, how should we distribute those, and what are some core things that we think are important enough that they should kind of take a tax, if you will, off some of those new monies coming in. Now, this is not going to be done in some secret smoke-filled room. This would be the types of things we go to campus and say, here's our proposal. There's certain things, the library, centralized functions, our infrastructure for finance that we feel need to be addressed. And here's how the money can come in. Here's how we propose to use it. Here's the impact it's going to have across campus. But in the short term, we're probably going to take some additional cuts because the serials keep going up in costs. And even if we go more money to the library, we can't keep up with how much that's accelerating. We know about it. We're looking for some long-term solutions. And I'm not tearing up over the question. My mouth is dry. So,
Time for another question.
Hi,
Oh.
Mr. Schulz. We
Hi.
spoke a little bit earlier. My name is Carmen Jaramillo. And I was wondering, what are you doing to reach out to undergraduate students and hear their voice besides the use of your Twitter account? And would you be willing to have a more open route of communication between yourself and the Daily Evergreen, the student newspaper here on campus?
Sure. I think, it's interesting in today's age, I want to make sure I'm as accessible as practically possible. So even though it's, kind of what your parents would do, email always works. I almost always respond to email or get it to the right person. Twitter or other social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Twitter, and some of those I'm also very active on, and that's how I respond to a lot of student concerns. And then I meet regularly with our student ASWSU president and vice president. We meet monthly to talk about things that are going up. I go to the Senate. I try and do as many of those things as I possibly can. If you have other suggestions, I'm always open to what those could be. So I don't mind trying new things and seeing how it works. We did some online chats at my previous institution, and when that was kind of popular, that really worked very well. And then as it lost popularity, we stopped doing it as much because it just wasn't as effective. So send me your ideas, and I'm happy to sit down with a student newspaper at any time.
Hi, hello. Wow, that's loud.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, President Schulz. My name is Danielle, and I'm from the Daily Evergreen. And I have a crowdsourced question from Jason, and he asked, when you say that WSU is committed to undocumented students, what tangible form does that commitment take?
I think we've got a variety of different support structures in place. Mary Jo Gonzalez in the Office of Student Life, she met with a group of our student leaders last night and talked through some of the specific things that the university is bringing to bear. I think there's been some, there's been some demands or suggestions that we declare ourselves, for example, sanctuary campus. We've felt that let's take the things that are listed as a sanctuary campus and really focus and work on those for our students, faculty, and staff, whether it's legal services or commitment from the university or the variety of different things, and kind of work on implementing those in a reasonable way. So I want us to be available and help as needed, and what we need is people to say, here are some things that you can do, not just as president, but the senior leadership team can do to show public support, as well as some resources that we need to bring to bear to assist our undocumented students. Maybe one more?
One more question.
Hi, President Kirk Schulz. Garrett Kalt with ASWSU Senate. And my question is in regards to the sustainability of the Drive to 25 efforts. I'm curious as to, after the launch, in a couple years when it kind of stops losing steam, how are we going to always come back to the Drive to 25, ensuring that students have a voice? And then as well as if you decide to switch universities for whatever reason, how will we make sure that this is something that just continuously gets pushed on for 25 years?
The whole switching universities things, I'm a little worried about thinking about that already. So, Noel told me that she's not leaving Washington, so if I go, I got to go by myself. So, so there's a couple things. The provost and myself went around to each college this particular fall, and we made a presentation on, some successes as well as some opportunities and things that we need to be thinking about institutionally. That wasn't just because I was here the first year. We're going to do that every year. And what happens is that presentation morphs to progress on the strategic plan and progress on the Drive to 25 and the linkage between those two. We also are going to put out annual reports, and we're going to be talking about it. Those action plans I talked about aren't going to be a 15-year action plan. They're going to be like 3 years. And the idea then is you get to the end of 3 years, you say, where are we? What things are working? What things aren't working? And what things do we need to do? So if we do that well, this isn't something that loses steam, because we're always asking ourselves, are we making progress? What can I do to do better? Are we measuring the right things? And do we need to make modifications and mid-course corrections? And all of those things are critical parts to it. And it's the job of the university leader and the leadership team to keep our focus on that and not sort of set it on a shelf and pretend like, well, it was important the first year or two, but now let's go do something else. So every decision that we make, significant decision, we should ask ourselves, does it help advance us in our strategic plan and our Drive to 25? And if the answer to that is no, it doesn't always mean you don't do it, but we got to think carefully about, well, why should we do this, and is it the right decision for us at this particular time? So those plans only work if you use them to help in resource allocation, decision, leadership, and that type of thing. Otherwise, what happens in a lot of places is you got a lot of energy, and you're right, after 3 or 4 years, everybody's off doing something else. And I can tell you, as long as I'm president, we're going to continue to focus on this. So with that, nobody's falling asleep. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
For those of you here on the Pullman campus, please join us for a reception in the junior ballroom.